Hello, and welcome to the Herbal Mana podcast, where we dive into all things natural that will help us to hurt less and live more. Today, I've got a special guest. We have Diana Pena. Diana has established a business which is pretty awesome, kind of in our neck of the woods, Miriam's Premium Hemp Products. I love the website. I love your social media presence. You've got a lot of good stuff going on.
Thank you.
Darn cool. Hey, how did you get into this? How did you get started? Now you've got a great backstory that I'd love to hear. I'd love all of our followers to hear.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me on. So, Miriam was actually my mom. And in 2013, actually yesterday was 14 years to the date that she was diagnosed with a glioblastoma brain cancer. So in early 2013 was diagnosed in January with a glioblastoma brain tumor, and almost immediately we were giving a pretty poor prognosis. You know, she was told that she had an inoperable brain tumor, and that even with chemo or radiation, she was only going to live maybe 6 months, 3 to 6 months. So it was pretty devastating
Diagnosis.
It just came out of nowhere. And so long story short, when you get a diagnosis like that, and on top of it, we weren't given very many treatment options. At that time, there wasn't really a lot of clinical trials for brain cancer, nothing that we can kind of say, okay, let's try these clinical trials, or nothing like that. We weren't given really any options. And so I started researching. My mom actually always believed in a lot of natural remedies. My mom actually had a natural medicine doctor who she used to go see for like some of like her womanly issues, fibroids, like she had taken care of like fibroids before using herbs. So I knew that my mom believed in this stuff. And so I started researching just alternatives for brain cancer. And I just happened to come across a study that was done by, now they're pretty famous, but back then nobody really knew who they were. But in our industry, they're pretty well known now because of the research that they've done, particularly in the area of cancer. But it was a paper that was done in a research that I found in Spain. These two doctors were starting to experiment with rats and brain tumors, and they had actually there was an actual study done on a glioblastoma, where they basically injected a rat with a glioblastoma brain tumor, and then they injected the tumor with cannabis oil, with like THC. And they saw promising results that this seems like THC could potentially kill these brain tumor cells. So I literally just took that from what I understood in reading this study, because obviously I'm not a medical professional. So sometimes these studies are not very easy to understand or comprehend. And I just said, okay, obviously there's something here. And I knew about marijuana, and I knew about cannabis, and I knew that, people used it for certain things. And I had kind of heard that there was some people were saying that you could use it for cancer, but I just took that and I just said, okay, I'm going to research this now. So when I started researching cannabis and brain cancer, I came across a group on Facebook. And this group at that time only had maybe less than 1,000 people in the group, a few hundred. And I joined the group. I went in there and I met a bunch of really awesome people that were like very helpful. And there was actually a family back in, I think, like Seattle, where the girl, her name's Alyssa, and she's actually still alive to this day, where her parents used high doses of this THC oil. To this day, she's still alive because that's how she treated this cancer. Is basically, you can Google. I mean, if you Google her, she'll come up. So I actually contacted her mom directly, and her mom basically kind of like told me what they were doing for her. And she said, this is what you need to do. This is what you need to give your mom. And so with this YouTube video that they sent me to show me how to extract the oil out of the plant, I started doing that in my kitchen. So I started making the oil for my mom, giving it to her. And from that experience that I went through as far as giving the oil figuring out how to make it, giving it to my mom. Luckily, I was able to do that because I was in California. And at that time, California was the only place that had a medical marijuana a program where you can access marijuana for certain types of diseases. And so I started giving the oil to my mom, and in doing so and sharing her story on social media, sharing her updates and stuff like that, as time went on, my mom was living past the 3 months, past the 6 months. After like 6 months, we actually started her on chemo. And so she was doing good. Obviously my mom wasn't dying or what, like they had told us she was going to die within a few months. And, she was actually doing really well. And so in combination with the chemo and giving her the oil, I was sharing her story. And I started getting a lot of people messaging me, people that I was friends with on my personal social media, asking, where are you getting this oil? How can I access this? Stuff like that. And it really became something where I saw that there was a need for this. A lot of people were really getting very interested in what I was doing with my mom. And so it just started from there. And I approached my partner, Jeff, who at the time, he was in real estate. I used to be a makeup artist, hairstylist at the time. So we were not in this industry whatsoever. Neither of us were. And so I actually showed him my messenger on Facebook. And I said, look at all these people that are emailing me, asking me, can I sell this to them? Can I show them how to make it? And because of the process that it takes to just extract this oil out of the plant, most people can't do it at home, or they just legally couldn't even access the flower to make the oil. And so after some time and of us seeing, obviously what we were seeing with my mom and, the influx of the people that were coming to me, we decided to go to talk to a lawyer. And so luckily, because we were in California, there was actually, lawyers that specialized in cannabis. And so we went and talked to a lawyer and we said, we are interested in being able to sell this to people, but legally, not get in trouble. And so we did. We started off as a medical marijuana collective, is what they used to be called 11 years ago when we started. And we started actually with high THC oils. And then eventually we moved into the tinctures. And then as time went on, because of what we were doing, we were really lucky because we kind of really started when in the era where there was literally probably a handful of medical professionals that were working with cannabis. And then as time went on, they started training other doctors that became interested in working with this, because 11 years ago, when you would mention this to any doctor that didn't really have any knowledge of this, they thought it was a joke and they thought it was silly and stupid.
Yeah. By the way, let me do a quick digression there. If I go to WebMD, which is what a lot of people look to online, you're going to find exactly that. It doesn't do anything. THC does help with one form of epilepsy. Otherwise, hemp, marijuana, THC, it doesn't have any medical benefits whatsoever. That's WebMD.
Right.
You go to PubMed, where you can find peer-reviewed studies.
Excuse me.
Bless you. Real studies, independent. You're going to find that there are some benefits, astounding benefits, the way that you affect the endocannabinoid system, which is kind of like your nervous system. Tremendous benefits.
Definitely.
You just have to stay away from WebMD, which is owned and controlled pretty much by pharmaceutical companies that can't control or own any form of cannabis. If it's a naturally occurring substance, they can't own it, so they're going to poo-poo the whole thing.
Right.
So anyway, back on track. You're on a great path here.
So there was a lot going on at that time, and so luckily I started making contacts and reaching out. Like I said, at that time there was maybe not even a handful of doctors that were actually believed in this, and so what I did is I started like kind of making contacts with the couple doctors that I knew that I became familiar with that were working with cannabis. And so I would say about a year later, after we were already giving my mom this oil, is when the whole CBD Sanjay Gupta CNN special came out. And what happened was, obviously that was Charlotte's Web, and the doctor that was working with Charlotte's Web and working with CBD and working with all these kids with epilepsy was one of the doctors that I had already kind of started reaching out to and sending our customers to her to get their medical marijuana prescription letters, because at that time you needed that. And so that's how we connected with her. And what happened was when Charlotte's Web first came out, CBD was really hard to get back in the days. Like there wasn't really any growers that grew that plant, that particular strain. So even just accessing the plant was very difficult. At that time, Charlotte's Web was the only one that actually had like a farm that was making and growing these plants. And what happened was it created a huge waiting list of kids with this doctor as well. So we already knew each other. And so she came to us and said, look, I have this list literally of hundreds of kids that can't access the CBD oil because they can only make so much. And she said, if you guys are able to obtain CBD, I can start funneling some of these kids over to you guys. So we said, okay, let's see, let me see what we can do. And luckily, like I said, through this Facebook group, I had made a lot of contacts with people that were in different areas of the industry, whether they were growers or extractors or whatever. We were actually able to get in touch with a farm up in Northern California that was growing CBD, high CBD plants. And that's how we started with our CBD, with carrying our high CBD products, is because of the request and the need of CBD products out there, because nobody was really making CBD products. And so that's kind of how we got involved in that aspect of it. And through this doctor, over time, she started training other medical professionals, nurses, doctors, and doctors in different fields of medicine, not just regular MDs or pediatricians. It was different types of medical professionals. And so what we got lucky is that because she really trusted our products and who we were, and we were very open with our testing and our labs and everything, we started getting a lot of doctor referrals from her and then from other doctors. And that's kind of how we became Miriam's Hemp. It really started with my mom. And then over time, sharing her story, that we saw that there was a huge need for this, because nobody else, there was maybe a couple other people that were doing it, but not like the way that we were doing it. And it just kind of grew from there. And so in 2016, when the laws for marijuana changed and it became legal in California, it actually, to be honest with you, kicked us out of the cannabis industry in California. Luckily, for us, we already had all of our high CBD products that we had, which was, anything was already technically considered hemp, because we were already making it at that 0.3% or less THC. So what we did, and unfortunately, we had to get rid of all of our high THC products, which, really devastated a lot of our customers, because we had a lot of kids that had epilepsy that really needed that higher THC. A lot of kids with autism, a lot of cancer patients that were using those products. But luckily, we were able to switch a lot of them over to our high CBD products and still get the same benefits. And so even though we had to pull out of the cannabis industry in California, what that opened up the gates for us to do is to expand to other states. So once the Farm Bill came into play, we were able to kind of expand and open our network of doctors and medical professionals that are able to use our products. We can ship them now to other states. So that's basically kind of like our story of like how we started and then how we got to where we are now.
Okay. Well, I've got some follow-up questions. You touched on a lot of cool things. First, you mentioned your background. You're not a doctor or a chemist.
Right.
A lot of this information can be found with just sheer diligence. If somebody's willing to go to PubMed, for instance, I have a hard time reading the studies when they get into all the statistics. It gets pretty dense.
It does.
But nearly every study has a really nice abstract,
Mm-hmm.
a good background statement, a good summary, and most of them are accessible to anybody with a little bit of diligence.
Definitely. Yep. 100%. You're so right. What I actually do is the doctor, her name's Dr. Bonnie Goldstein. When I get a study, I actually text it to her And I tell her, and it's really cool because she'll break it down for me. I said, can you, like, am I understanding? I'll read the abstract. And sometimes even the abstract, I won't really, or what exactly are they saying here? I know they're saying something like A, B, and C, but I'm not, am I understanding this correctly? So it's kind of cool is I get her to break down a lot of these studies for me because we use a lot of those studies to write our blogs. Any kind of information that we put out there, we always like to cite it with a study. So yes, you're very right. A lot of people, there's PubMed is where we get all of our information.
Good, reliable source.
Definitely.
Peer reviewed, which is important to me. So you have a team of scientists that are doing the study, and then before it gets published, it's got to get reviewed by somebody else, typically another team or one or two scientists to make sure that it works.
Correct. Yeah.
Now you mentioned labs. Thought you might as well went ahead and pulled one of my latest lab reports. If I go to Circle K or Wawa or any of the other convenience stores and I see a CBD product, I could buy that, but I know very little about the product. In fact, I don't trust the product. In fact, early in our company's history, when we were starting to use CBD in part of our formulations, we bought a lot of products and then sent them out for testing. Occasionally, we found products actually had the amount of CBD represented. Some had little to no CBD. So if somebody wants to have faith, how do they really know what's in the product? How do they really know the level of THC or CBD or CBN or any of the other cannabinoids?
Right. So the COAs are very important. And certificate of analysis. Yeah. And I can tell you that that is probably one of the things that a lot of these medical professionals back in the days when we first started and people didn't know who we were, I can tell you that that is probably one of the things that made them trust us is the fact that we disclosed all of our where a lot of other companies that were kind of starting to come up or even were already around were not disclosing it. Or they would just maybe test for cannabinoid content and that's it. They weren't testing for terpenes, residual solvents, mold, pesticides, all of that stuff, which every company should. Another thing that even to this day, there's, we get people that question or even ask us, like, have you heard of this company? And, we'll kind of, or they'll say, oh, I have this product. I'm using this product. Can you find me a comparable product to yours? So we kind of have to go to that website and look up this product. And one of the things that I always look for, I immediately go to the website and look for where's their COAs. Sometimes they do have them listed, but they're years old.
It's not a current batch.
Right. So it's not a current batch. So either they're not updating their COAs, they don't test that often, different reasons why. So definitely having full disclosure of COAs, having them listed on the website is very important. Not only that, but making sure that whatever product you buy matches that batch number. And so you can see whatever date it was tested. If it was tested within the last 3 months, then it's a recent batch. We do batch testing every few months. The reason we don't do it monthly is because we make such huge batches of our products. So the COAs are good for a few months. And so, if we have a product that we go through a lot quicker, we might batch test quicker. So it's important to test for everything. So everything that's in there.
We do something like that. When we're sourcing all of our ingredients, we'll get the COAs for every ingredient with an independent lab. The COA that I'm holding up here does not come from our supplier. This is one of our CBD suppliers. We do not have them do the testing. They have to show us a certificate of analysis from an independent lab. Then we use the CBD in our products, like this one. This is one of our favorites. One of my favorites, our Alpha Warrior, which has a lot of CBD. We'll get the certificates of analysis before we manufacture, and then after we test the entire batch again, because we're going to look at how much THC, how much CBD is really there, and then all of the other contaminants, mold, pesticide, everything that we checked on the front end, we recheck on the back end. If I go to a convenience store and I reach for that CBD product, I don't know what the heck I'm getting.
Yeah.
If I go to your website, I see a ton of awesome information. I feel like I know what I'm getting when I go to your website. And for CBD, it's awesome, but only when it's awesome. You've got to have the real thing.
Yeah, definitely. I think To be honest with you, I feel that right before COVID, the CBD industry was getting really inundated with a lot of people that were just, they thought this was like a gold rush, and they're just like, I'm going to white label my own product. And, they would just not, they didn't know what was in it. They didn't care about the ingredients. They just wanted to slap a label on whatever and put it out there. I can tell you that COVID kind of put a stop to that, to be honest with you, because right before COVID happened, there was such a huge influx of so many companies. And I think because obviously these companies are not going to survive if they don't have a steady flow of regular customers. Luckily for us, by the time COVID came around, we were already in the industry for a really long time. We thought COVID was going to pretty much maybe shut us down. It actually kind of did the opposite. We were really busy during COVID, I think because people were so anxious. It was almost like they needed to use our products. So we definitely saw a difference in the influx of all these companies that were coming in and just like, like you said, putting these products out there where you would go and you test it and the labs were not even matching anything close. Obviously if you say, for example, you take our product and you send it off to whatever lab you use, it's probably going to be a little bit different than it's not going to be exactly the same because not every lab calibrates their machines exactly the same, but it should be somewhere in the scale of close, right? Even we've tested that theory even ourselves when we've sent in product to a lab. We'll send in we could send in the same batch and send in two different bottles, and they're not going to be exactly the same, but they should be close.
Yeah, it just needs to be close within a statistically appropriate margin of error.
Yeah, so labs are very important. Like I said, I think that's one thing that kind of propelled us to gain the trust of a lot of medical professionals out there. In the beginning, I don't know if that happens to us as much now, or people don't tell us. But in the beginning, a lot of the medical professionals were like, "Hey, I want to try your product, but I'm going to send it out for testing." We would always get the results back from them saying, "Hey, your labs are great. Everything came back. What you said
Do it
was
the right way, you get the right outcome."
Yeah. And this is kind of cool. A few years ago, we actually used to ship to the UK. Before the UK changed, the UK regulated the CBD industry to where they made it really strict a few years back. They came out with this novel food law and all this stuff. But before that, we had a distributor in the UK that was taking our Miriam's hemp products and selling them in the UK because it was allowed. And she actually was she was a distributor for Charlotte's Web. So the only distributor for Charlotte's Web in the UK. And then she brought our products into the UK. Well, and this is kind of cool that she told us this. She wasn't technically supposed to, but she did. She said, I want to let you know that the equivalent to the FDA in the UK, I don't know what they're called out there, but basically the equivalent of the UK, of the FDA here in the UK, took like 10 of the main brands that were selling in the UK. We were included, Charlotte's Web, a couple other brands. They did it like a secret testing where they took all these brands and they did a whole panel testing on the product to see if what was on your labs came up on their labs the same. We were number one. Awesome. And unfortunately, we couldn't, because it was a secret, testing that was done. We were never able to actually publicize it. She did send me an article that the UK, in some newspaper, that the UK had done this testing with CBD products, blah, blah, blah. But they never named the companies or where they came in as far as like first place, second place, who came in last place. And the reason that they didn't do this was because at that time, the UK had this where you as a company could pay to belong to this almost like a club. And so because some of the people that were some of the major, they paid tons of money, they didn't want to disclose that their products did not test very well. And I was like, okay, well, that makes sense. Of course, they're not going to disclose like, hey,
Serving, yeah.
right. Yeah. So that was kind of cool. I mean, and that kind of tells, like the quality of our product has even withstood the testing of the UK's equivalent to like the FDA.
For the quality of your product, I know it starts with sourcing. Where generally do you source your product, your ingredients, your raw materials?
So our extract, so like the CBD extract, comes from an organic farmer that we have in Oregon, and the reason we chose them was because we originally used to do everything ourselves. We used to grow, we used to extract. Yeah, we were 100%,
Scale, you do everything.
yeah,
Really scale.
yeah, we were 100% vertically integrated in the beginning. But what happened was obviously when the medical cannabis laws changed in California, we weren't able to do that anymore. And so in order for us the most important thing for us was to keep our CBD strain very similar to what we were growing, because especially with the kids with epilepsy, with some of them, any slight change in the profile of what they were taking would affect them. They would start having seizures, the product wouldn't work. And so luckily, after much sourcing, we found a grower whose profile was almost identical to what we were using. And so we ended up negotiating a deal with him. And so we still to this day use the same grower. And this grow in Oregon basically sends us the extract. And so actually right behind me is our manufacturing facility. And so we just get the extract with the different cannabinoids, whether it's CBD, CBN, CBDA, all that, we all get them from this grower, and we take that and we manufacture everything ourselves. We make all the different potencies, all the different types of oils. We bottle label everything ourselves. We mix. As far as like the sourcing of like the base oils, the olive oil, the MCT oil, all of that is sourced from like the most organic, clean sources that we can find. And then on top of that, some of our products are flavored. So even the flavoring that we use, for example, like the vanilla extract that we use, and there's actually, we made a whole post about it on our social media, but where we source our vanilla extract comes from Madagascar vanilla beans that are like the way that they're made and the flavoring is made. It's kind of almost the way that wine is made. It's like aged, and it's this whole process with this vanilla extract that we use. Same thing with our orange extract. So it's not just some flavor that we get off some company online. Like even the flavoring that we use goes through this whole process of extraction. And so we definitely do our best to try to source everything as clean as possible, organic, even though we don't have an organic symbol because we're not certified organic. Everything is organic. When we built this facility, when we moved in here, we're not GMP certified, but we actually hired a person that is a GMP like expert, and he basically helped us set up our facility. We follow GMP standards. Yeah. So we've tried to do everything that we can, try to get close to being organic and GMP certified. We're a small company, so for us, we're really like a small mom and pop shop, and getting organic certified is a long process and it's very expensive. Same thing with going through with the whole GMP certification. So we're prepared for the day when, if and when the FDA ever actually regulates the CBD industry and starts putting in certain things that we have to do and have to follow in our facility. We've already started doing that. So as of right now, they don't require it, but we think that they probably will at some point.
And all of that craziness, the eye for detail. That's why somebody listening to this podcast, if you're thinking about buying a hemp product or THC product, anything like that, go to somewhere you can trust. Go to Merriam's. Don't go to the vape shop on the corner. You've got to know what you're buying. Otherwise, there's a good chance you're just throwing money away. Like I said a little while ago, we tested a lot of products before we started adding CBD into our formulations. And it was surprising to see that some were awesome and some were crapola.
Yeah.
Some had little to no cannabinoids, nothing in the way the ingredients that being represented. Plus, wasn't that long ago. I could go onto Amazon and I could see CBD something or other, 29 million units of something. No idea what 29 million is for. Do you see that? 29 million, 12 million, 35 million, I think was the top that I ever saw on a label. And it's just bunk. You've got to know what you're getting.
Yeah.
Health benefits can be significant, but if you're just using second-rate stuff or just junk, you're not going to get the benefits. You're not going to affect your system the way that you could if you get good quality input.
Right. And the label should be pretty clear and easy to understand. And that's one thing that, even like I said, a lot of times we get customers that say, I'm using this brand and I want to switch to you. Can you tell me what's comparable? And sometimes we can't because their labels make no sense. Ours are pretty clear and cut. It says on the bottle the total milligrams, and then it says the milligrams per dropper. So it's pretty self-explanatory,
Got real information, real transparency,
Yeah.
the way it's supposed to be done.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's important too. If you look at a bottle, you should be able to look at a bottle or a box and be able to say, okay, this is this potency and I know how much is in the bottle. Sometimes that can be really confusing for people, but once we explain it to them, it's easy to understand how to read what you're taking.
If somebody wants to buy a product, go to your website, they're going to see maybe topicals, maybe oil, maybe tinctures.
Right.
How do they know? What's the difference?
So we have a menu. And it's pretty easy. They just, it says on there, I believe it says products, and then it goes down to like a drop down menu, and then it has topicals, tinctures, and something else. But I mean, that's we don't carry a lot of variety. We don't carry a variety of other things. We've kind of always specialized in the tinctures and, topicals. We recently came out with a muscle cream earlier last year, but for the most part, we've always just had one topical and then, just an array of different cannabinoids. I think what can be confusing for people is they don't know what to take and where to start, which we do offer a couple resources for that, for people that don't know where to go, where to start. We have a free nurse consultation website, I should say, that people can make an appointment. We give them a coupon code for a free 30-minute consultation with a cannabis nurse that kind of gets them started. They go on there, they explain to the nurse what's going on, what they're dealing with, what they want to use it for. And then based on what the person tells them, the nurse will tell them, go to the website, go to here, and kind of almost guide them and tell them this is what you need to order. And so we have that. For more in-depth, difficult situation, then what I mean by that is, with things with like epilepsy and even autism, cancer, things that are a little bit more serious illnesses, we definitely recommend that if they're able to pay for a consultation with a nurse or a doctor that specializes in dosing. And so I've over the years, I've compiled a list of, there's maybe 15 doctors and nurses on there that offer consultations. And they're all over the country. Actually, a couple of them are outside of the country. And some of them are specialized in certain areas. So, we kind of guide people to different resources so they can get that help when they're confused on where to go and where to start. If it's something simple like, anxiety or sleep, we can kind of guide them. That's pretty easy, because we pretty much, me, myself, and the staff here, we're all very knowledgeable and kind of have an idea of like what people are using for sleep, pain, anxiety, simple things like that. But when it gets a little bit more in depth, it's just better that they go with somebody that has more knowledge and more of a medical background, obviously.
Tinctures. What is the process to create a tincture?
Well, like I said, you get the extract, and then based on the potency of that extract, we take that, and then so for example, like I said, we have a variety of different cannabinoids, but then within those cannabinoids, there's also different potencies. So depending on which one they're making, there's a whole bunch of like different measurements and weights. And depending on how much the potency is needed for that, he'll make a batch of like, let's say our 100 milligram CBD tincture. So each product is made separately. Each potency is made separately. So there's a whole process that goes with that. I personally am not involved in that part. My partner Jeff is, and a couple other guys that work in the back. They're all the experts when it comes to doing all that. But there's a lot of science and a lot of chemistry involved. in making that. And it's pretty cool because he pretty much kind of self-taught himself how to do a lot of this. But yeah, and then we also do the customization so people can customize the tinctures with different terpene profiles if that's something that they want, which is something that's really popular. And as of right now, we're the only company that does that.
I have not seen that anywhere else. That's a different level of awesome when you can do that customization for a customer.
Yeah, and it's very popular. Every day we get, anywhere, depending on the day of the week, anywhere from 30 to maybe 80 or 100 orders. I can tell you that as of right now, probably about 70% of the orders that come in on a daily basis are customized. So obviously it's something that works really well for our customers because they keep reordering their products like that. And we've gotten quite a few doctors and nurses onto that now as well. And they love it. And it works really well for a lot of people.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, on the tincture side, one thing that's fascinating for me about the tinctures, and this is based on research that's developed the last half dozen years or so. Half dozen years ago, we got the Farm Bill.
Mm-hmm.
The CBD became much more accessible, hemp-based. We started using it topically. Now, when we put it into our formulas like this guy, our Alpha Warrior, we combine it with DMSO, dimethyl sulfoxide, which helps with absorption because CBD does not absorb all that well topically. So it needs a little help. With a tincture, you get some really good uptake, really good absorption. Personally, I love the CBD we've got in our products, but if I really want to move the needle, then I've got to reach for something like the tincture or whatever to move the needle and get the good absorption that I'm after.
Yeah, definitely.
Tinctures are great.
Yeah.
And folks really need to get familiar with that opportunity to be able to take advantage. You just get so much more into your system.
And out of any form of ingesting cannabis, it definitely stays in your system the longest. Probably, if you're going to vape, you're going to feel an effect right away. You're going to smoke, you're going to pretty much feel an effect right away. Sometimes with the tinctures, the effect is a little bit more delayed, but the effect will last a little bit longer. And that's why, the tinctures are pretty effective for a lot of things, but combining the tinctures with topicals for some people is really great as well. So, a lot of people use a mix of both, edibles, gummies, but for us, the tinctures have been very effective for most of our customers.
Yeah, I prefer the tinctures. As far as gummies, we did test quite a few gummies and even looked at carrying gummies. But the unfortunate thing with gummies, for most of what we saw in the manufacturing, they'll make a piece of candy and then squirt some of the oil on the outside of the candy. And it wasn't always uniform. We could test one piece versus another and not get necessarily the same amount of cannabinoids. With the tinctures, I know what I'm getting. I know what I need to dose, know the effect that I'm after. Gummies are a little sketchier, just a little less likely to be consistent one gummy to the next. Also, they just don't taste good. If you get high quality CBD on a gummy, it's going to taste wonderful.
Yeah. And
with a tincture, you can get a tincture with essentially no taste, if that's what you're choosing. And you still get all cannabinoids and all the awesomeness gets absorbed.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very true. We looked into gummies for a while. And we actually had hired a chemist that I think he actually formulated the gummies for Charlotte's Web or one of those big companies. And we hired him and he came up with a formulation for us. The thing that was hard about the gummies, like you said, is it's very hard to make them organic where they're going to be okay for a lot of these kids to take. And so that's what made it really difficult is we could not find a manufacturer. We had the recipe, but we couldn't find someone that, because we're not in the back behind here. We're not set up as a kitchen. So we don't have the space, but we also don't have the kitchen because you basically need a kitchen to make the gummies. And
doing candy making with a little bit of CBD or cannabinoids involved, but it's mostly candy making.
Right. And so we couldn't find someone that had what we needed to make a really true organic gummy that a parent with a kid with autism or epilepsy that's on a really strict diet could take these. And because most of our population of customers are people like that, kids and adults that they just cannot absolutely have any sugar, any kind of, product that or food that is, processed or whatever.
Well, that's me. We found they're all loaded with sugar. They all have artificial dyes. A lot of them have funky preservatives
Yeah.
that we really don't need to be ingesting.
Yeah. But they're really popular, sir. I mean, we get asked if we have gummies all the time. We just couldn't, again, because quality is so important to us. We were just never satisfied. It is something that we would like to carry if we found a really true organic product.
Yeah, I like to pass you on. I like what you're doing as far as the website, what you're representing. Love the research. And then the phone and nurse thing. I assume some other companies are doing it, but I have not run across any that take it to the level that you do with Miriam's.
Yeah, the nurses, they work with other people. I know they're partnered with a few dispensaries. Because if you go to their website, it'll say on there like what other companies use their service. But yeah, I mean, it's awesome because it takes the weight off of us, especially because none of us here are medical professionals. So, and technically, legally, we shouldn't give legal medical advice to people. So it also takes that away, that risk of us, getting in trouble if something happens to somebody and, they're like, oh, well, you recommended this and my child got really high and now CPS is involved. That's happened. We've seen that happen before. So there's just a lot of reasons why having that nurse hotline is really beneficial.
Where's your company going in the future? What kind of plans do you have? Where do you see that and the industry? So your company and the industry.
You know
what kind
what?
of predictions can you make?
It's really
2025.
hard. It's really hard to say that because we're so restricted. And when I say we're restricted, I'm talking about we're restricted with advertising. And even anything that we put out there, we can't say certain things. We actually just, like 2 weeks ago, we had to remove our blog off of our website. We had to remove our cannabinoid risk descriptions off of our website because our credit card processor said that we were making medical claims. And really, we weren't making technically medical claims, but a lot of our verbiage, we can't use the word pain. So there's certain words that, like, how do you explain how this works without using that word? So it's really hard to move or grow a company when you're so restricted with what you can put out there, the advertising that you can put out there. We're not allowed to text message people as a form of advertising. We're not allowed to say certain things. And so it's really hard. It kind of keeps the company stagnant, to be honest with you, a lot, because the only thing we can do is come out with new products, right? The only thing, if a new cannabinoid comes out, we can come out with a new product. But to get it out there and to put it out there, we have a lot of restrictions. We would love to grow the company and we would love to be able to put ourselves out there more and advertise more. But to be honest with you, with a lot of the restrictions that you have in this industry, it makes it hard.
When you can't say pain.
You can't say the word pain.
We had a product, actually it used to be this product. We call it Alpha Warrior, but it was Pain Warrior. And we were selling a truckload of it on Amazon until Amazon decided the name pain meant that we were diagnosing and treating a disease.
Right.
Simply by saying pain, which is nuts. It's a symptom. It is not a disease. It's not an illness. It's a symptom. But Amazon and Amazon's AI decided otherwise. So your product,
and it's the credit card processors that are probably the ones that are
they're the frontline problem.
Because that's the issue that we have. We had to disable our Facebook page. We're like, okay, but that page has been up for 12 years, right? It was like a whole almost 3-week process with Square Card, going back and forth. They would say, oh, your blog says this, you need to take this down. Okay, we took that down. 2 days later, okay, we checked that. Great. Now your description page says this, you need to take this down. We're like, oh my God. So it was very frustrating. And so when people say, oh, where do you see yourself? I mean, honestly, it's so hard to say because the way that you grow a company is through marketing and advertising, putting out there. And for us, not only are we a smaller mom and pop, so our budgets are not huge. So, getting someone, paying someone to handle all of our Facebook and do ads and all this stuff. Well, actually, our Facebook ads is disabled from like 10 years ago. And they kind of didn't reactivate it for us because back in the days when marijuana was illegal in almost every state besides California, we were obviously sharing stuff on our Facebook page. And so the ads got disabled. So anytime that we try to do an ad through Instagram, because it's connected to Facebook, it gets shut down. So that makes it a little difficult. Yeah. I
It
mean,
does
for
make
us,
it challenging.
yeah, it's very challenging. So luckily for us, because we have such a wide network of doctors, that's how we're able to kind of keep, our company going, getting people to know who we are. And doing podcasts like this helps. I would love to be able to, be able to kind of put the word out there and spread our knowledge a little bit more. But again, we put a blog out, and if it has any of these words, pain, inflammation, sleep, it's considered that you're making a medical claim and you have to take it down. So it's quite frustrating.
Makes
Yeah.
it a challenge. Fortunately, there are podcasts and other ways to do it, but it's a little less direct. It takes a while. In our case, we'll do this podcast. It'll go out to our 25,000 email followers, highly engaged followers. So it helps.
Yeah.
And you're right. You have to keep just kind of chunking away to get the word out.
Yeah. So we do a lot of email marketing. Luckily, our YouTube channel, we've focused a lot on YouTube videos. So right now, like a lot of the information, a lot of the stuff that we took down on our website for now is on our YouTube channel. What we're doing to kind of mediate that issue is we actually, as we speak, our website person, because we have someone that handles our website and does everything like on our website. He's creating a couple landing pages that we're going to eventually roll out. So that way they're not connected directly to our website. So people are going to be able to eventually read our blogs again and we had to take down our testimonials, I think, too, as well. And so
Do that with our Facebook ads, which have been shut down a time or two. Somebody can see the ad, which has to be very sterilized, go to a landing page, which says a little more, and then to a third place where we can say, here's all the information. Once they've gone through a few steps, otherwise Facebook, like in your case, will simply shut down the ad account. And at one point, they even shut down our fan page. It was a pretty ugly day.
Yeah.
When all of that occurred.
You totally understand where we're coming from because you've been through that. You've experienced that as well.
I'd rather read about it. I'd rather not have lived it, but we did. Just like
yeah, we're used to it. We're used to having bank accounts. That doesn't happen anymore now that it's more legal throughout the nation. But we've had our personal bank accounts shut down. That had nothing to do with the business. Like I kept my personal bank account completely separate from the business, because we have to do taxes and, we weren't mixing anything at all. And somehow they were able to figure out that the bank account that we had for the business was connected to my person, that I was that person. They shut down our bank accounts.
Yeah, that's frustrating. Especially we've seen even some of that post Farm Bill. Farm Bill was passed, I think, 6 years ago, I believe, December of 18, I think.
2018.
So 6 years, and we're still seeing some trouble in the banking industry, even though the hemp-based CBD and other cannabinoids, 100% legal.
Yeah.
And it's still a bugger. And then with credit card processing, even if you get it, typically they're going to classify you as high risk so they can charge more.
Yeah. Or go through what we just are going through with Square Card is they just will literally make you scrape your whole website to where it makes it hard to sell a product because you can't
speak honestly about the product.
You can't say, well, this is going to help for pain. No, you can't say that because you're making a medical claim. So yeah, if you go through our website and people are like, well, how come I don't know, people that don't know, we get messaged all the time on our chat or people will call, how come I can't, how come you don't describe what this product is used for? And then once we explain to them, well, we wish we could, but we can't. Okay, that makes sense. But yeah, I mean, people come to our website all the time and there's nothing on there that will tell them what the products are good for, which is
crazy.
really stupid, but
That really is. Yep. It is when you can't speak directly because it looks like you just want to speak truth. You're transparent. You're doing the hard work. You're getting the right science and you just want to speak truth.
Yeah. Well, and all of our blogs, whenever we talked about a product and an ailment, whatever, every blog was cited with a medical study from PubMed, and they don't care. Even when we're citing this, we're just basically taking this study and putting it into a blog. We're not, this is what the study is saying. And no, that's not okay either. It's like very frustrating. And, blogs are one of the things that that gives your website the most Google ranking. So not having a blog on our website right now is really affecting our Google ranking. So that's another thing that's really,
Maybe Robert Kennedy can fix all this for us.
Hopefully, yeah.
I don't think it matters whether you're a Democrat, Republican, anything else. I just hope that he's able to get more transparency and a little bit more common sense. I don't have high hopes of fixing the whole pharmaceutical industry, but I'm hoping that for cannabis and for food that we all have to eat, I hope we can get good, honest disclosure.
Right. Yeah. You're
transparency. Yeah. Just that.
Because you're basically shutting us up is really what they're doing. They're not letting us say, well, this does work for this, and
And you're talking about something that naturally occurs. That is the crux of the problem, because you're dealing with something that is from earth, it naturally occurs, it cannot be owned by some nameless or faceless corporation for pharmaceuticals. And so you're in constant battle. We face the same thing. We use CBD, we've got a battle there. We use some other organics. We use DMSO, dimethyl sulfoxide. Same battle, same thing. Naturally occurring, awesome, but it can't be owned. It's a naturally occurring substance.
Right.
Well, I'm glad you're fighting the battle. Love what I hear. I love the presence. I know I can tell looking at what you're doing online that you're being very careful, striking a balance between marketing and not saying too much.
Yeah.
It's an aggravating balance to strike.
It is.
But I'm glad you're doing it.
Thank you.
More companies like yours. And really, folks listening to this, if you want the products, go to Miriam's. We'll have the website down in the show notes. Don't go to the local vape store. Don't go to the local gas station. You've got to know what the heck you're getting. It's got to be high quality. It's got to be proven. It needs to have the science and the proof through the labs to make sure that it actually works.
Right. Yeah, definitely. I agree. Yeah.
All right. Well, I think you've been a good sport putting up with me for an hour.
Thank you, Todd.
The story, love all of this. And like I said, we'll include all of that down below. It's an important part of our health. And also, we'll do a future podcast. Maybe I can have you back where we can talk about the endocannabinoid system.
Oh, yeah, I would love to. Very important. Definitely. I think when people know about it and learn about it, that's when they really understand, like, wow, this is why this works so well for most people.
Yeah, it takes a lot of the mystery out of cannabis.
Definitely.
A lot of folks really don't know about that. And I'll even ask some medical folks, even recent medical school grads, about the endocannabinoid system. And typically they'll say, yeah, it was mentioned in a class, or, what? No. If you go back 8-9 decades, you can find quite a bit going on in the research. And then we get to a time period where there's just a huge gap, a lot of suppression. And then it's only been the last decade or so that we've started to see research. In fact, really the last 5 years or so, where we're starting to see real research into the endocannabinoid system, even though it's such a critical part of our system. And in our case, we're dealing with folks with chronic pain issues, long-term management of pain. And you've got to address the nervous system, muscles, joints, and the endocannabinoid system.
Right.
So maybe we can do this again in a month or two.
Definitely. I would love to. I would love to talk about it. I'm kind of a geeky nerd when it comes to anything cannabis.
We need when it comes to body systems, especially a system not many people know about.
Yeah, most people don't know it. We have it. Your animals have it. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, that's awesome. Diana, I appreciate your time.